Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Feneley. I'm a fashion illustrator and today I'm going to be showing you how to make some fashion illustrations in watercolour, a bit like these ones, and what you'll need to do that. So we'll start with materials. You will need some watercolour paints. So these can be flat pan watercolours like this, or they can be tubes of liquid watercolour. You'll need a pencil, a small and a medium paintbrush, or just a medium paintbrush if you have it, some scissors, an eraser, some tissue paper to dab with if you prefer to use that, a hairdryer, and watercolour paper. You can use normal paper, but I would advise watercolour as you'll find it a lot easier to use your paint with. Then you'll also need a picture from a fashion magazine or a picture you have downloaded from the internet and printed out to use. So we will get started. So to create illustrations like this, we're going to do a rainbow illustration today, which is where you'll blend a mix of colours, but you can also do lots of different effects with watercolour. So you can maybe stick to just one colour and using black and white, and I'm going to show you how to use white paper and negative space to create shapes and silhouettes. So when you're choosing the image to use from your magazine, I would suggest picking something that has an interesting shape. So the way that you see the body on the paper, maybe it has an interesting outline. The clothes have interesting shapes, like this dress, which has lots of different angles and a really interesting silhouette. All sorts of different pictures you can use, but just something that you'll enjoy drawing and stands out to you. So I'm going to use this one today. So we're going to start with cutting out the picture which you have either taken from the magazine or printed. So I would cut around your figure. You can start wherever you'd like, but try and be relatively neat, because the neater you are at this stage, the easier it will be to make your illustration. So I'm going to be quite neat. Cut around all the little details. If you need someone to help you with this part, or a parent to help you with this part, then it might be easier for you. But if you're confident and you're safe doing it, then go for it. So this is quite a complicated one because there's lots of little lines. Yours might be simpler. So this is going to be one of the longest parts of the activity. This part actually might take longer than when you paint, because this is quite a delicate shape you're cutting out, and all the curves count towards the end result. So don't rush this part or feel like you need to have it finished before the video ends. You can always come back and do the rest of this later in your own time. So I'm just going to make it easier for myself and cut out some big chunks first. Okay. So I'm just going to go back and make sure I've got lots of little details cut out. Again, you can simplify this as long as you have the basic shapes there, and you can tell where your silhouette is, so where your arm is and things like that. Okay, and for the hair, you don't have to cut around every hair. Just a rough shape that the hair makes is a good thing to cut out. So you should have your silhouette, which will sit on your paper. Just missed a spot here. Again, sometimes these really little details make all the difference in a silhouette painting, so don't forget any little parts that you might have missed, particularly on things like shoes or towards the head, as these really make all the difference. Just going to get some bits here. This is the fiddliest part, I assure you. Okay, that will do for me. So, place it on your page. You can place it in the middle. If you'd rather make it a bit more interesting, you can maybe do it on an angle or to the side. So I'm going to actually do mine to the side here. Get your pencil and just gently hold it down and just draw a really gentle line around your silhouette. So I'm going to press down a bit harder so that you can see where my lines are when I'm showing you, but make yours really gentle. All it needs to do, this line, is show you where to paint when you're going to add the paint. So as long as you can see it, that's fine. You know, it doesn't need to be a really solid line. Try and make it a light line. Go around every edge. All the curves. This is why it's really important to stick to the actual curves that you're cutting out. The shoe. Okay, so it might move a bit. If it moves, just line it back up with the lines you've already drawn. And carry on. So this is a good point now. So you should have a rough silhouette of the shape of the person you're drawing. Now we're going to cut some more. So anywhere where there's clothes or we have a different material or place on the body, we're going to cut out. So the obvious one I'm going to start with is where the dress ends here. So maybe your person is wearing a skirt or trousers that come down to here, or maybe it's a long dress. Wherever the bottom of the garment that they're wearing ends, you cut along that line. You might not be able to see it on your picture, but most of you probably will. So if you have that, cut along the bottom. There we go. So if you just stick your bottom half back down there, or don't stick, just hold it, and then just draw where your line follows that. So what we're doing is creating the key shapes in pencil for you to use as your guide to paint. So again, the next part I'm going to cut out is where the head is. So I'm actually going to cut around all the way down to the neck that I can see, and all the way back up. So you'll have the head basically separated from the clothes. Put your clothes back and then draw your rough outline. Next, and this is often the important bit, find where the jaw is, so where the neck starts and the head stops, and cut around that line. Try and be kind of careful. And that will give you where the jawline is on your drawing. Just here. So there's a rough outline. Now I'm going to go in again, more detail. So you might have a skirt and a top that ends here. And you cut out where that line stops. If you have the hands overlapping, just focus on just cutting out the skirt part or the bottom part and leaving the hands where they are for now. Just roughly cut around the shape of the hands. Doesn't need to be around every finger. So you'll have the top here. Again, follow the same lines. Here's your skirt. And then because this is quite a complicated shape and we want to be able to see different parts of the clothes. I'm actually going to cut around the arms. So where that black sleeve is, I'm going to cut around there. And just roughly around here. So you can see the shape of the arm. Again, just going to put this back and draw that inside shape. So it's where the hand is. And there we have a really nice looking silhouette where we can see different shapes. Now, to make this even more interesting, if you have quite a complicated clothes, maybe lots of layers or different shapes or patterns, you can go ahead and cut some of these out just to make some more interesting shapes when you start painting. Again, try and be patient. This is the part that takes the longest, but will give you the best results. So I'm just going to cut halfway down there. You can use either side of the cutout to draw around, whichever feels easiest for you. And just remember, these are rough guides, they don't have to be perfect. Maybe the last one, I'm just going to cut out this frill on the shoulder, and that will create a really interesting line. So that's here where the neck is. That's where the shoulder was. So here's where we're going to draw. There we go. Okay, so you can add in more details if you want, or you can just leave it quite simple, which I would recommend. So if there are any parts that don't look the sort of right shape exactly, maybe her ear comes out here and her jaw comes in a bit, these will just give your drawing a bit more character and definition. So you don't need to outline every shape, but just define the silhouette. So obviously the hair will be a bit looser, and maybe we'll add in the lapel on the jacket. Okay, so that's enough for me. I'm happy with how that looks. Again, don't rush this part. If you want to come back, then that's totally fine, and do it later. So I'm going to move on to painting. So with your water, you should just have next to your paint. We're going to pick out the first colour you're going to use. So actually, before we do that, just get your brush and wet it with lots of water. And then we're going to decide where we want to use the paint. So just to show you an example, in this drawing we coloured in the inside, so we coloured in where the clothes would be here, and then to show where they would be on the outside, we added the outside colour. Now you can do this both ways, so you can just colour around the outside, or you can colour parts of the inside, but I would suggest you do a mix of both. So maybe start somewhere that you definitely want colour. So maybe we definitely want colour on the frills of this part. So pick your colour. I'm going to start with pink because it's my favourite. Mix that. Okay, just wet your brush again. Get your brush nice and wet. Doesn't have to have any paint on it at this point. And just add water to your drawing. Just go inside the lines that you've drawn for whatever part it is. So here is going to be the frill for me. And then the lapel on the jacket, this little bit here. And then the ruffles here. So now we've got those parts wet, I'm just going to add your paint. So I've just got lots of pink paint on my brush and just push it in there. Just let it move a bit at the bottom. go. So I like pink because it's really, it's such a striking colour, but it also goes well with other, a good range of other colours I've found. So I'm just gonna let that paint move around on its own. Don't touch your paint too much because you'll get this nice mottled effect like in the one I showed you. So the effect that you'll get like this is done by letting the paint dry, and it lets the colour sink into the page and settle where it naturally is. So the less you touch the paint at this point, the better result you'll get. Hence why we have a hairdryer to hand. So once you've given this a minute just to let it settle in and get the paint where you want it, get your hairdryer on a very gentle, warm setting. Don't hold it too close to your paper or you'll blow it all away. And just gently, very gently, just dry. So you don't have to dry it until it's fully dry, but just so that you don't have too much paint and water on your paper at this point. So I would just give this another minute or so, maybe about 30 seconds of hair drying. And then I'm gonna add some more water. So it's okay if your water is like tinted in a color, like mine is tinted pink. That's fine. I'm just gonna carry on with that. And I'm gonna paint around the silhouette at the top. So where you can see the outline of her hair, I'm just going to add water all around the edge of this outline and also to the edge of the page because mine is quite close to the edge. So I'm going to fill that entire corner with water and the top. And then I'm just going to have this messy kind of line next to her here. Follow the outline. And then where this water is now, just going to add some more pink. So you'll get this really fun effect of the pink spreading, or the paint colour you're using, spreading into the water. And this will give a really cool effect when it's dry. So don't put any more water on after this point, just let that run. You can move it around your page a bit, but again, just try and let it sink into the water. You can join it up to the rest of your colour if you want, or just leave a messy sort of line around the edge. So I'm going to carry on with the bottom half of the painting. So I'm actually going to wet, maybe on this part it's the skirt that's not joined up, or maybe it's, you can see some of the legs. So I'm just going to wet this. It can be clear water, it can be tinted, it's okay either way. And go around my edges. And then I'm going to pick another colour from the rainbow. So I'm going to start with purple. You can mix purple paint with blue and pink and red, or if you have a purple already, you can use that. Again, these colours, you can choose whatever you want. I'm just using a rainbow as an example because I think it looks really cool. So a bit of purple, and I'm going to add my water, more water, and then blue. I'm just going to blend these in together a little bit. Push your paper down, and then some turquoise or some light blue. If you have green, you can add green now as well. And just move the colour down to where the page is wet. So over the parts you've painted wet, just move your paint around a bit. You don't have to blend it all in, you can let the colours sit where they are. I'm just going to add a bit of green on the bottom. And again, I'm just going to let that settle. It's very tempting to try and move it around more, but at this point I would just leave it still. So now these layers are starting to dry, you're starting to get darker patches and lighter patches, which is really nice. So at this point we want to start defining the other shapes. So I would maybe get a different colour, so maybe a yellow that we haven't used yet. Again, if you need to clean your water in between, you can do that. I don't mind mine being a bit messy. Just clean your brush off, and maybe you have a gap where the arm is, like I do here. Again, your pink is going to bleed in here. That's fine, I'm cool with that. Just going to add a bit of yellow. Here, now, around the edge of the page again, we're going to follow that line of the skirt. It's okay if this bleeds in here, but you can leave these to dry completely if you want them to be more separate. So I'm just going to wet all around the edge of the page now. Again, if you want to hair dry this part here at the bottom, if it hasn't dried yet, you can do that. I'm just going to now add some more yellow around the edge. Again, all these colours bleed into each other. I think it looks really nice. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can join these up if you want. And just a messy line around the edge. Doesn't have to be neat. Looks quite cool, I think. There we go. So at this point, I would advise you to do some more hair drying. So we can move the pieces out of the way that we didn't need to use again, if you're happy with your silhouette. And just get the hairdryer and go for it. So at this part, you might notice that you've got this paint bleeding, the colour that sort of moves around. Again, you can tilt your page and just let this kind of go where you want it. It doesn't, you know, there's no right way to do this. Yours can look however you want. So I'm just going to let mine slide around the bottom of the page a bit. Just maybe stick to where the edge meets the white, because that'll give you a lot of definition. So just going to leave it there. So once yours has dried enough that you're happy with it, again, you can let this dry naturally if you're doing this in your own time, and come back to it later, or you can do it while it's still wet. So I'm going to grab my small paintbrush, and I'm going to use this now to define where we marked the jaw, and this just give your painting a bit more shape. So I'm actually going to select yellow again. Just wet your brush, and maybe it's underneath the jaw, between where the top of your clothes start. Just wet that and get some yellow paint and just let that run there. The thing you can also do to define the face a bit more is cut out the hair. So wherever your cutout was, you can use this and cut around where the hairline is and draw in your hairline. So I know where my hairline sits, but if it's easy for you, cut it out. So I'm just going to do a sort of rough line here. And then I'm going to wet the hair, just in some water. Again, your colour might be bleeding in again, that's totally cool. And then some more yellow. And then I always think if you want to add some of the face details but don't want to paint the whole face, the eyebrows and the lips are a really good thing to add in. So the eyebrows sit about halfway down the face, just a little bit above, and you just get a really thin brush and add in. So look at the picture that you're studying if you find it easier, and just add in little lines for your eyebrows. And you can just leave that there and let them dry. Again, it might bleed into your colour, that's fine. And then at this point, you can move your page around again if you've got lots of colour building up or water. Let the colours bleed into each other. And then let that settle again. So I am gonna air dry this so it's fully dry before we do the final details. If there are any parts that are really wet and you've just got loose water on the page that isn't doing anything, you can use some tissue paper. So I'm just gonna grab a piece and just gently, really lightly blot. It's gonna leave some marks on your paint, but again, this can be quite a cool effect. So just dab different places. And then do another layer of drying to help. So now you should have paper that might be a bit damp but isn't running water, and you should have seen your colours settling into these nice little ombre effects. So make sure my desk is dry. So at this point you can leave it as it is if you're happy with it, or if you want to add a final touch, I would choose a really bright colour, so a striking pink or blue or even black, and just wet your brush. Get plenty of paint on the brush. So I'm actually going to use black in this case to do the line with, but you can use, like I said, any colour. So just get lots of paint on your brush, as much as you can, so it's a really solid bright line, or dark line in my case. Get plenty on your brush, and then we're just gonna follow a line, whichever line you want. You can pick any line that you've used already and drawn from. I'm gonna use the edge on this right hand side here, and I'm just gonna get the colour and go the whole way down. So I'm gonna start maybe near the top of the hairline. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to get the black again and just go down maybe another line I liked, and maybe the middle line here. If you had, for example, ruffles on a dress, maybe pick out some of the ruffles. So I'm just going to pick out some pleats on the bottom half here. And maybe we just pick out the top of the hairline. jaw. And maybe the side of the skirt and the leg here. And that's it. I would be happy to leave it with that. Again, you can do as much as you want at this point. You can outline the whole thing in your colour or in black, or you can just do one line down the side, or you can just pick out the details you want to. So it's totally up to you. So there is our finished piece. Hopefully you will have something that you've really enjoyed making, and you've learned a bit about how to use watercolour to create these kind of cool colour effects, and use silhouettes to make fashion illustrations from magazines. So yeah, I really hope that you can put this into practice and make some work of your own. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.